Today we're going to talk about Fnatic, because in their first game against BBL, they lost. And they lost essentially because they had two disastrous halves of Valorant. The one that we're going to look at is their attack side on Abyss, which was particularly quite bad, and we'll get into all the details of that. Then they played a pretty good defense side on Abyss. They had a pretty good fracture overall and played well on that map and won that map. And then they had a good attack side on Split before then losing a 9-3 lead and having a pretty bad defense side of Split and losing the game. So essentially Fnatic lost this game because they had two really disastrous halves of Valorant. And in between that, there was actually some fairly decent to good Valorant from Fnatic. But we're going to take a look at this attack side on Abyss because you're probably going to be shocked at just how bad it was. And it starts in the very first round, the pistol round. And the plan for Fnatic here is actually fairly simple. What they're going to do is they're going to send a drone out towards B just here with Crashies, as you can see, whilst the other four players are going to hit A instead. And initially, this drone has the intended effect, right? We get some rotates coming across, we bait out a Sage wall just here. The A site is now nice and clear, so, plan worked essentially, right? And we're going to come in onto the A site, as you can see just here, and we basically get an uncontested site, and you see everything is hunky-dory, and we're going to go and plant the spike, right? So up to this point the plan is working absolutely brilliantly for Fnatic. Boaster's going to plant, and now they're going to get into their post plant, and this is where the round starts to go wrong though, right? Their post plant, because what they decide to do is, you can see that right now we've got Crashies, coming back from his little excursion on B. We've got the four players on the site, but you're going to see that we're actually going to end up retreating here. These two are going to come back, right, and play off-site on A, and you've just got Boaster and Kayak here playing more aggressive. Now, in a second, what you're going to get is a shock dart coming out from Sociable that I think is going to either hit Kayak or is about to hit Kayak, right? So he's going to send out a shock dart there, and a stun is going to come in here. So instead, Kayak decides to teleport away back to A main, which leaves Boaster on the site. Now, this isn't necessarily a disaster in and of itself, but they are going to lose this pistol round.
Delaying them even further. Tejo's rockets come in, the salvo blocking them a little longer, meaning it's a panic as they run back into Boaster. He's not able to capitalize though.
Yeah, they've caught both controllers in a matter of seconds. The only problem now is just that time has been ticking. Already half, some shots connected by Kayak, but it doesn't matter. The defuse.
So what were the problems then in this post plant for Fnatic? What mistakes did they make? Well, there's a couple of them, right? The first one that I want to talk about is the way that they're playing this post plant, right? It's an off-site, kind of passive, spammable-ish post plant, right? That's what they're going for. Now, it is a pistol round, so spamming is, not the easiest, but it is planted in a position where you can basically only defuse from one area, right? So, okay, this is a spammable spot, and playing back here in main in this round isn't necessarily the worst idea. Now, it starts with this, right? That we're playing for kind of this perhaps slower way of doing this, but we send in the rockets early. Now, this isn't necessarily a massive mistake because it does still delay these guys, right? These guys are still delayed. So whether you put it on the spike or whether you, did this now, it is still creating some amount of delay, right? So that is true. And it also allows Alpha to come out of the smoke and come and get this kill. So that one maybe isn't the biggest mistake in the world, but of course you could save the rockets for the actual spike if you wanted to instead. Boaster is going to get perhaps a bit unfortunate here, a bit unlucky that his right click doesn't get a kill there on Yampy, but okay. But the next mistake is this, right? Chronicle. Because Chronicle, if you take a look at him, is going on this flank just here, going back through mid. Now, why he came from here and decided to come all the way back around to here rather than, just have Crashies do this, I don't fully know. You could say that that's a mistake in of itself, and just having less people here making this harder for these guys who are still on the site because we're swapping positions. But his problem is that he does have a star available, right? He has a star available. The time is ticking here, right? You cannot die. You must be the last alive because you're going to have an Astra suck, right? If we lose the round before that, if all these guys die and you end up in a bad spot, that's kind of not your fault. Or what you can't do is be running to get here faster with your knife out, right? When we're still in a 4v4. That's what you can't do. You can't do this. You can't die here without using your Astra Suck, essentially. He has to be more patient than this because he has to essentially be the last alive. So that's a mistake. The other mistake that they've got is the Crashies here didn't buy shock darts and bought shields instead. Right, so again, when we're just formulating this round and what Crashies' role is in this round, he's droning on B to start, right? And then he's eventually, as we come onto the site, he's going to be here. And his job at this point, like when they're planting the spike, you can see He's just waiting to see, is anyone flanking here? Right? Is anyone looking this way? Can I pick up a free kill on someone and go from there? Well, here's the thing again. If we're playing for this kind of, denial, we're going to try and live back here, maybe spam a little bit, we've got rockets, we've got an Astra suck. Well, buy shock darts. He could have afforded shock darts. Even if he gets rid of the shields, he can have 2 shock darts. And guess what? You can probably learn some kind of lineup from back here, right? If you really wanted to, you could learn shock darts for this. And pistol rounds matter, right? This is the first pistol round of your entire season. You should have been planning this, not necessarily what map you're going to play, but your first pistol round on Abyss. This is the kind of plans that you should have, because the shock darts are going to do more for you in this kind of scenario than these shields are, right? With the way that the round is playing out, with what Crashes' role is, where he's not, he's not getting aggressive here on B, right? He's just droning out. He's coming back here. He's chilling, and then he's ending up in main, and he's chilling, right? Like, what's going to be more used to you is shock darts, especially on a pistol round, because the shock dart damage matters, right? When everyone's only got like 100 health, doing 75 to them in one shock dart, that matters, right? And again, if we're playing for this plan, things like those little details matter. Okay, now let's skip ahead to round number 5, and this one is a bit of an eco for Fnatic. They do actually end up winning this round by 0.01 seconds, crazy, but the initial exit that they go for doesn't really work and will come up later again as well.
It's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, there's a lot of spots that you can't feel as comfy in holding, one of which might be where Loon is, if not for the gate crash that he can quickly fall back to up in heaven. That may be needed. Guided salvo underway. Rockets not going to take Loon out.
But you see that the exec didn't go so well for Kayak. And in fact, when we take a look at this and how this goes overall for Fnatic, you can see a big problem that they had with this comp and who's playing what role as well, right? Because as this exec comes in, you see we've got the 2 smokes in here. We're going to get a Sova Dart up here. We're going to get an Omen Flash coming across here from Boaster. I think the salvos are coming in here. Maybe one back here as well. And then, it's going to be Kayak TPing in. But what I want you to watch here is as Kayak dies, right? So if we just play it forward and see when Kayak actually dies here. And maybe they're not playing well enough against a Yoru here with Loon as well, right? And the fact that Loon can happily be in these kind of areas. And we'll see later on he does exactly the same thing. He has a TP to get out. So he's more than happy to play in these kind of spots, right? When you're playing with a Yoru, there's only certain positions where your TP is going to go, right? It's either going to go here or here, essentially. And so Loon knows that, so he's put himself in a position where he can go and get that kill but still potentially get out, right? But what I also want you to notice is just look at the rest of the Fnatic players, right? Because as he's dying, no one's really that close, right? There's no potential trade here whatsoever. And I think that this is where part of the role thing comes in, because when you're looking at this team and these roles, right, who is your second player in on this? Right, because if Alpha's going to be doing his rockets on his little iPad, and Crashies is doing a little, dart lineup or whatever, obviously Chronicle's playing Astra, you'd probably say most likely the second player in is probably Boaster, right? Probably. But that's the thing, it's Boaster. So if you take a look at where Boaster's gone, after he's gone an Omen Flash this, look, he's going to check the flank here, right? He's not the guy to be running up here. And to be fair to Fnatic and Boaster, you probably don't want him to be the guy. When you've got Alpha and you've got, like, Chronicle, you'd probably prefer them to be the second guy in, to potentially trade Kayak or, do whatever, right? There's also, I do have to say, it's 2025, right? If you watch a team like Chronicle who play a lot of Yoru or whatever, this is too easy, right? We're playing Astra. Chronicle has 4 stars left. Bro, it's 2025. Get a recall star here. Right? Let him TP into a recall star. Right? And if you think, oh, that's too obvious of where the TP is going to go or whatever, well, then put another recall star here. You're playing Omen Astra. Smokes are no issue. Right? We don't need those stars desperately. Right? Especially when we're just doing a B exec. Right? There is no other thing to this round. It's just a B exec. You've got full 5 stars. You don't need them all. Right? We can spare one here to do a little recall, or even a full smoke to give Kayak a bit of cover so that he can then maybe flash out of it or whatever, right? We can afford that. We're playing double smokes. Do it. Instead, he just ends up dying, as you see just here. So we maybe, I think, had some, like, would it be better if Bosa was on Astra and Chronicle on Omen? Even if they're not as good at playing those agents, although Bosa's played plenty of Astra, so I think that would be fine as well. Yeah, that probably makes a bit more sense for how this is going, because otherwise we end up with a map that looks like this, where this guy is always safe to just kill Kayak and then be safe. Okay, next one here from Fnatic. Doesn't start off too bad, right? The initial plan that they come up with is fine. They're waiting for the op here, and they do actually get a tag here on Loon, as you can just see there from Chronicle. And now they're going to come in towards mid, right? So we're going to go for a little mid play here. You can see that the TP is now on its way down. What we're eventually going to do, you see we got another star in here in mid. We got a smoke in there. We're going to go for the Teo stun over here. Right, we're going to TP just in behind it. We're going to send a dart in here as well. And we're going to try and kill this guy, essentially, right? Who's in mid. That's our plan. And that's not necessarily a terrible plan. It just doesn't quite go right for them.
More deep A main control for BBL as a result. Quick rotations. They start to make their way towards mid to stack up heavy for the fight. That does come their way. Kayak dropped.
So as I say, this isn't necessarily a terrible plan. I think, again, it's just maybe lacking some details to make it an even better plan, or one that has a better chance of success, right? For instance, we're going to see Alpha here is just holding out his stun. Would it potentially be better if he salvos first, then does this stun, right? So could he go salvo as the rockets are traveling? We know that they're slow. Then you run out here, you stun, right? It puts this guy really in a bind where if a guy is here, and we do see that he does get revealed by the dart as well. You know, if you put salvos here as well, he essentially then has no escape, right? So if we think that a guy is here, we can salvo this, we can stun this side, we can TP here, we can dart him, you know, essentially, you know, flash him, whatever, give him no escape, right? Instead, you know, we don't do that, so Yampy actually, you know, does end up escaping here, and we end up with the death. Now, here's the thing as well. Boaster here, you know, he's been revealed, so we know that Yampy is there 100%, right? He's going to go for the TP play, right? Which I don't hate. I'm not saying that this is a mistake necessarily, but again, maybe with a bit more patience, we Omen flash this guy? I don't know, right? Like, there are possibilities here where this does go better for Fnatic, but I think this is one of those tricky situations of where playing Yoru, I think, can be a bit difficult. It's like, what do you want to go all in on supporting the Yoru, like we saw potentially in the last exec that didn't work for them, or do you want to try and get closer to him to support him, you know, with your gunplay and potentially trade him if he dies, right? Boaster goes for the second option here, but he's just a little slow on that as well, right? So he's just not able to trade it either, which again, I'm not necessarily saying is a mistake by Boaster, but again, maybe the timing is just a little bit off to where he can't trade that kill, and then ends up in a bit of trouble. Now, Boaster ends up basically kind of salvaging this round. He actually does really well here, because you see, he's going to get a kill, right? So we end up in a good spot. Now, we're going to go 1-for-1 here again, as Boaster gets another kill, but unfortunately, as he TPs out, which again is probably the right play to get him out of a bad situation, unfortunately, that means that Vac can go for this res, and Fnatic don't really have an answer. But this wasn't the bad part of the round. What I've shown you thus far is a plan that went slightly wrong, which, you know, maybe could be a bit better in the details, but, you know, isn't a disaster in any way. But now I want you to watch what Fnatic do, because from this point, there's still 50 seconds left in the round. Now, we don't have really any control, right? We've spent all our time in mid. We have no control. But let's just play the map on 2x speed and see what Fnatic do. Because they come back towards mid, right? We're at 33 seconds now. Then you see if anyone's flanking them on A. Now they're in mid again. Now they don't know what to do. Which way are we going? There's 18 seconds left, and look at where they are. There is 18 seconds left. They're in the middle of the map. What was our call here? We had 50 seconds at one point, and we were basically in the same spot. There is 13 seconds left. You tell me what you think is going to happen next. What actually does end up happening next is Vac, I think, thinks that they're saving and decides to just run out here and actually give Fnatic a chance, but the time is too low for them, and they do end up losing.
Look where the spike is, straight to the site. No room to slow down. Chronicle needs to clear the way. They have to take the snake out of the grass. If Loon can drop this spike, it's over and done with already on the site. The plant now attempted, but he's just around the corner. Loon denies it. The time run dry.
So yeah, unfortunately, Crashies gets off the spike. He did just about have enough time. I actually went frame by frame, but he gets off it, and they lose the round, right? Because they don't have enough time, and they seemed indecisive. If we come to the very next round, round number 8, we see a similar sort of thing where, okay, Kayak maybe should win that fight. Loon does well to win it. We end up in a 5v4. And again, the round has just started. Let's take a look at what Fnatic do on the map, right? We're just going to watch them now do nothing, right? And we're in the spot now. We're in a 4v5, right? So we're really the team that needs to do something. But just keep your eye on them, right? Because eventually, with about a minute left here, we come and group up in A main. Okay, so we've grouped up in A main. The dart gets destroyed just there. And now we're going to essentially, you know, this is our plan. We're going to go for an A hit, right? We start putting stars on the site. We start going for a dart here. We're going to start putting some util in. right? This is our exec, right? As the time again is ticking. So in we go. We're gonna smoke. You saw the rockets go past just there. We've got an Astra Star on site. We're gonna send in a nice little Teo stun here. We're gonna send in the salvos, the Astra stun, drone. It's an exec, right? It's an exec. And I understand that, this was a nice stun by Yappy you might have seen here from the breach coming back. But no one moves, right? We don't move. We never even get in close to trying to attempt the spike. And now there's 25 seconds left. And at this point, I think the call from Fnatic was to go and save, right? So we just like essentially did all of our exec util, but without the exec. Now again, BBL decide to go and chase what they think is a save and die and give Fnatic potentially a chance back into the round. Again, they have no time, right? So when they just have to run in with no util, yeah, they die and it doesn't go well for them. And then, Boaster does go and save. So again, kind of 2 rounds where we're just indecisive. We don't really know what to do. Are we going for something? Are we not? Where are we going? What are we doing? It just seems a bit discombobulated. And now I just want you to watch the start of round 11 and see if it looks familiar to you.
Silly, but it does feel like one of the main things that has been frustrating Fnatic in this match.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe just break it.
Destroy it. We'll see if that idea is put into effect.
The fun thing is, though, Loon then plays ahead sometimes. So it's not like they're just sitting doing the same thing again and again. And well, there you go. He's ahead of it. So you're not expecting anybody to be that far forward. That's already Kayak dead. And by the way, he had the spike.
That's the second.
So we're going to end with this one here, and this one is an unmitigated disaster, right? It's just an absolute disaster, especially because, as I showed you before, this has already happened, right? It's one thing for it to happen once on an eco. To then do it again and the exact same thing catch you out. And this is the thing, Loon is on his own here, right? If we just look at the map, you would think like, oh, Fnatic are in a good spot here to win this round, or at least have a successful exec. But they don't, because again, it's just not a good exec, right? I mean, Loon can hear that TP coming past him. He's already been here and killed you once from this spot, right? Yeah, you're going to do all of this util or whatever that, again, doesn't hit this position that you've already died from once before. Again, there is no one that is close, right? So again, Omen Flash, nice. Yeah, the rockets are good for you, right? There is no one close here to Kayak, right? They are acting as if, I mean, and he's got the spike. So I'm presuming here that for whatever reason, Fnatic thought that this was going to be a completely free site, right? We're going to get the spike down and then we're going to play, kind of a full post-plant crashies ult and go from there, right? That's what I assume. They're already thinking about the post-plant before even taking the site. Loon gets a free kill. The spike's now down, right? I also want to point out, they've got a comp with 2 drones. They've already died to someone in this exact spot. He's already done this to you in this game. And yet we're still just getting absolutely destroyed by it. Then we, go for an Astral to try and help us or whatever. But by then, it's too late. We're getting silver ulted. Like, we've got no chance. Again, BBL, Loon decides to troll here. I'm just going to show you this as well. What on earth is he doing in a 5v3? I have no idea either. So, yeah, there was mud in this game. It was muddy, right? This was muddy. But I think that this showed, like, hold on, we got some problems, right? In the details specifically, right? There are detailed things here that Fnatic can definitely do better. Even if the second half of Abyss was much better. Fracture was much better. The first half of Split was much better. But they ended up losing this game because they just had 2 halves like this, where it was just like absolute unmitigated disaster that we couldn't come back from.